A very good morning to you as you join us on Razep Africa this beautiful morning. I'm excited to be here as usual with this troublesome co-presenter, Anyete Unime from Akwa Ibom State.
Joy, you have to make that very loud.
I need to make it loud so that whoever is listening to us will know that it's because you are from Akwa Ibom State that you are the way you are.
No, that's not it.
Just kidding. I have wonderful Akwa Ibomites friends.
Yeah, definitely.
Some of them do.
No.
Some of them.
It is just like someone telling you how good you've done a thing, and then at the end of the day, the person says, but. Once you hear birds, you should know that there's something.
Yeah, but I'm also telling you that I've had good Akwa Ibom friends, but some of them.
No.
Okay, but Africa is beautiful because of this diversity.
Yeah, definitely, Joy, and you know that I'm actually very happy that I've come from where I come from, and I know you're glad that you actually are from where you're from. And
no, I'll take. You know what? We don't have a lot of time. I'll take this Akwa Ibom yap afterwards. Okay. But first of all, welcome everyone to Razep Africa. Here we give you everything you need to know about the African continent, keeping you abreast with what's going on, analyzing sector by sector. But we are going to the African news update this morning, where we would be analyzing stories across Africa this morning. And we begin in Central Africa, where Chad has declared a 20-day state of emergency in its Lake Chad region following a surge of deadly attacks blamed on Boko Haram. The decision follows ambushes that left at least 26 soldiers, including 2 senior generals, dead, triggering nationwide mourning and intensified military operations. Government spokesperson Kasim Sharif said authorities are responding to a worsening security and humanitarian situation marked by renewed jihadist activities, civilian displacement, and growing threats to communities. The latest assault on the Bakar Toloro military base alone killed 24 soldiers, while President Muhammad Idris Deby expressed gratitude to Nigeria for its support in ongoing counter-terrorism efforts across Lake Chad Basin. Now from Lake Chad crisis, attention shifts now to the Central Africa's regional diplomacy, where Angola and Gabon have signed 3 new cooperation agreements aimed at strengthening economic ties and reducing dependence on oil revenues. The deal was concluded during talks in Luanda between President Joao Lourenço and Brick Oligui Nguema. Both leaders stressed the need for diversification into sectors such as agriculture, terrorism, and infrastructure development. While Angola highlighted its experience in non-oil sectors, Gabon emphasized its ambition to reduce reliance on crude export, with both countries pledging deeper regional cooperation and investment flows. We move now to Mali, that has moved to reinforce its military leadership following recent deadly attacks that shook the country's security establishment. A new Chief of Staff, General L.C. Jane Dao, has been appointed by transitional leader General Assimi Goita as part of a wider restructuring of the armed forces. The shakeup comes amid allegations that some military personnel were involved in planning and execution of the recent coordinated attacks. Reports also point to arrest of opposition figures and growing accusations of a political purge, deepening tensions in the already volatile Sahel nation. And to Zimbabwe now, it has announced a major land restitution move, saying it would return about 67 farms seized from European nationals under bilateral investment agreement. The decision forms part of broader efforts to rebuild trust with Western countries and unlock long-delayed debt relief. Agriculture Minister Anxious Mazuka confirmed that the farms belong to nationals from Denmark, Germany, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. The move is seen as part of President Emerson Mnangagwa's strategy to repair Zimbabwe's international relations after years of economic isolation and sanctions linked to past land reforms. Now, at the same time, concerns is rising across the continent over xenophobic tensions in South Africa, where several African countries, including Kenya, Malawi, Lesotho, and Zimbabwe, have warned their citizens to exercise caution and remain indoors. Ghana and Nigeria have also stepped in, with Ghana assisting in safe return of a few of a targeted citizen, while Nigeria is preparing voluntary repatriation for more than 130 nationals. Governments across Africa are now urging on South African authorities to act decisively as reports of harassment and violence against migrants continue to spread. And finally, in Cameroon, former National Assembly President Kavaye Yegoe Jibril has died at the age of 86, marking the end of one of the country's longest political careers. Jibril, a close ally of President Paul Biya, served as parliamentary speaker for 34 years after being elected in 1992. His long tenure is widely associated with strengthening executive dominance in Cameroon's political system, and his death closes a major chapter in the country's legislative history. That's it for the African News Update this morning. We go for a short break. When we return, it'll be time to get into the analysis. We'll be right back shortly.
Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world. Voices that know, voices that live the African experience, voices that are shaping the next chapter of our story. Let your spirit rise. We don't just tell Africa's story, we own it. Join Joy Asonye on Razep Africa, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Global Television.
Okay, welcome back from that analysis of the African News Update this morning. So I guess I just start with which of the stories piqued your interest this morning?
The one that piqued my interest would be that the concerned Chad and the security issues, maybe because it is actually related to what we're facing in Nigeria today, the security tension everywhere in Nigeria, and we are seeing the same happening in Chad, where the same Boko Haram that has been terrorizing Nigeria is also having issues of security tensions and scores of persons left dead and persons displaced from their homes. That is where my concern is this morning. And just a few hours ago, we saw that the country has made it a very decisive decision that people should, in a way, stay back home as they try to see how to battle this. And maybe in some way, this is what we've actually not seen very recently in Nigeria. And I think that is where my concern is this morning. So
right. But have you noticed how, unfortunately, even in the Sahel regions where there is a coup and there's military takeover, we are also seeing renewed attacks by insurgents and terrorists. One of the things Nigerians will constantly say when it comes to the fight against terrorism in Nigeria, and the reason why we are still recording that will be is because it's a democratic government. Yeah. The military would never have taken this and all of that. But we're also seeing a military administration have a hard time also having this counter-terrorism attacks on it, and we're seeing it thrive.
I think the differences would be clear. Where we are having this insurgency in Nigeria, it is a democratic administration in Nigeria, and we are seeing nothing more like steps towards making sure that this is actually resolved. Maybe that would be the difference with when we see administrations that are of the military, where you'd see them come up very straight and on with decisions, and one of which is what we're seeing today, 20-day state of emergency.
20-day state of emergency
yes, of
because
course.
of the deadly attacks by Boko Haram.
Exactly.
In
Nigeria, we heard about state of emergency in River State, and it had nothing to do with security tension. It had just a little bit to do with preserving our oil pipelines, because that was the major concern.
It was completely political.
It
was politically motivated. It wasn't terrorism. It wasn't banditry.
Exactly.
It is not the kind of things that countries are suffering for. It was absolutely avoidable.
And so they see why my concern is why we could have state of emergency in a place like River State, where it was
not declared one in Benue State, in Borno State.
In Borno State, exactly. So you see my concern now, and that is why I say that in one word or other, this is actually very interesting for me this morning.
Right.
It's actually a country that is facing insurgency, and one of the things to do to calm the insurgency and also to look as though at least they're fighting it. Maybe at the end of the day, we might hear standstill. They'll fight it to a standstill. Is a 20-day state of emergency that has been declared.
Absolutely. Okay, that's it for the African News Update analysis this morning. We go join the GSAI produced program Agriculture for Today and Tomorrow, a new segment that's going to be introduced here on Razep Africa to give you the information around agriculture, the potentials in it, and what you too can do to feed Africa. We'll be back after this short break with Agriculture for Today and Tomorrow. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
In the heart of our field lies the future of agriculture, sustainable, innovative, and powered by smart solutions, from the rich soil of Africa to high-tech farms around the globe. Agriculture is evolving to meet the demands of tomorrow. At the intersection of tradition and technology, we discover smarter ways to grow more, waste less, and harvest greener. Together, we are cultivating a future where every harvest sustains the earth and its people. Join us 11:15 a.m. Mondays and Fridays on Global TV, Channel 365 DSTV, StarTime Channel 276, or YouTube Livestream GSA Initiative. Agriculture for Today and Tomorrow, as we share groundbreaking ideas, empowering farmers, and celebrate greenhouse solutions. Together, let's grow the future.
Hello and welcome everyone to today's episode of Agriculture for Today and Tomorrow. Here we promote smart solutions for a greener harvest. My name is Esther Itefia, your host. Remember that this is a media for agricultural development project of the GSA initiative. We are an NGO that is committed to supporting African farmers through sustainable, innovative, and profitable agricultural practices. We are so glad to be back, especially after the long break that we had. And we are excited to bring conversations, fresh conversations, yes, hot gist in agriculture that spans through insightful news, opportunities in agriculture, and a well-rounded discussion on how agriculture is shaping today. At GSA initiative, that is the Growth for Sustainable Agriculture initiative, our goal, one of our major goals, is to build capacity for farmers by creating awareness and providing information for farmers about the opportunities in agriculture, and also analyzing trends, agricultural trends, highlighting innovations, and also just talking about the trends and practices in agriculture and Africa as a whole. Yes, and one of our long-standing traditions that we will continue is having guests come over to the show where we discuss about different topics in agriculture, pertinent and important topics in agriculture that are of interest. And these are experts that span from various aspects of the agro value chain, such as your researchers, your agricultural tech experts, your consultants, commercial farmers, and so many professionals. And the aim is to improve our overall understanding of agriculture and also to be able to identify the opportunities that are within the sector. Because trust me, there are a lot of opportunities in agriculture waiting for us out there. And our interviews happen on Monday with our guests, where we have interactive discussions, and on Friday we have more relaxed conversations just like this, where we talk about agriculture, analyze trends, and also we just look at the realities of farmers and how agribusiness is as of today. Now we are going to analyze one of the trends for today, and it is a trend that is gaining global attention in Nigeria and Africa in modern agriculture, and it is mechanization and the impact in Nigerian and African agriculture. So let us sit back while we go on a short break. When we come back, we'll talk more about the impact and the role that mechanization has in agriculture here in Nigeria. Thank you.
In the heart of our field lies the future of agriculture, sustainable, innovative, and powered by smart solutions. From the rich soil of Africa to high-tech farms around the globe, agriculture is evolving to meet the demands of tomorrow. At the intersection of tradition and technology, we discover smarter ways to grow more, waste less, and harvest greener. Together, we are cultivating a future where every harvest sustains the earth and its people. Join us 11:15 a.m. Mondays and Fridays on Global TV, channel 365 DSTV, StarTime channel 276, or YouTube livestream GSA Initiative. Agriculture for today and tomorrow, as we share groundbreaking ideas, empowering farmers, and celebrate greenhouse solutions. Together, let's grow the future.
Okay, so welcome back from the break. We are going to talk about the role that mechanization has and the impact it has in Nigeria and agriculture. So, simply to put, what is mechanization? Mechanization is simply the use of machineries, equipment, and inputs to reduce labor and to also be free from stress and increase time efficiency. So remember back then when we were young and they would say, what do you want to be in future? We have a lot of people who would say they want to be doctors, engineers, and so on. And that was because the agricultural sector, that is farming, looked laborious, it looked difficult, and nobody wanted to be a farmer. We just had this image where a farmer is someone who takes the hoe and go and cultivate under the sun and suffer. But now it is a joy to see that a lot of people are venturing into different aspects of mechanization, and we see that through the use of tractor-propelled planters to improve efficiency of the farm. So the planters are attached to the tractors, and the tractors drive through the field and plant the seeds in alternating rows, and it is precise, the depth is precise, the distance from one plant to the other is precise. This is a far contrast from the initial way we know farming to be, that is tedious and having to sow the seeds one after the other. And then we also see the use of drones now. A lot of farms are incorporating drones into their field for monitoring the fields, and they also even use it to apply pesticides and even fertilizers. So it is a whole lot. Instead of using the manual knapsack sprayers that we know, drones are used to also achieve this at a shorter time. And then look at the wonders of the combined harvester. The combined harvester helps to reduce time and labor required during harvesting. So before we would have to manually cut, harvest, and then thresh, winnow, and bag. But now the combined harvester does that in a shorter amount of time, where it harvests, threshes, and winnows, and then it just gives you your clean seeds that you bag, and very efficient and time saving. And honestly, mechanization has done a lot for agriculture. It has improved efficiency, reduced stress, and contributed to food production and food security. But despite this, all these benefits that we have considered, many farmers still shy away from mechanization. And this is because of the cost implications, limited access to machineries, and in some cases, the lack of knowledge and the technical know-how on how to use and maintain these equipments. So one of the important things to understand is that agriculture is actually changing and the population keeps increasing. There is a higher demand on farmers to produce more to meet the ever-growing population, but this cannot be possible because of the hindrance in adopting these mechanized practices. Food is increasing, food demand is increasing, and farmers are expected to produce more within a shorter period of time. So mechanization is no longer a luxury, it is becoming a necessity for farmers today in Nigeria. Many farmers also struggle with labor availability. During peak periods like planting and harvesting, labor becomes very expensive and sometimes very difficult to find. I'm sure some of the farmers tuning in today can identify with me how difficult it is to find labor, especially during the raining season and the harvest time. Everybody begins to look for labor and it becomes very hard. Labor becomes scarce or very expensive, right? And this also makes it that farmers are not able to plant. They miss the planting cycle and they plant after the rain has started because of the lack of labor. But mechanization has come to eradicate all of that. And the joy is that a lot of young people are trooping into agriculture, right? So the youths of Nigeria, they love the soft life. They do not want to be so stressed. And mechanization has made it so that we can do much more, produce more without having to go through all the stress. So when agriculture becomes more technology driven with drones, smart irrigation systems, digital monitoring, and modern equipment, it begins to look less stressful and more innovative. Right, and there's also a business side to mechanization, right? Instead of just apart from the production, mechanization also helps to create business opportunities. So we have some people today who can afford these equipments like the combine harvesters, the tractors, the plow planters, boom sprayers, and the lots more. They buy this and lease it out to farmers who cannot afford this service. And this is a means of generating revenue, another aspect of agro business. So yes, it is opening another side to the agribusiness that a lot of people did not pay attention to. But the good thing and the beauty of it is that mechanization is not just happening among farmers alone, and it is not just drawing the attention of farmers and youths. Even the government and the private sectors and agricultural stakeholders are beginning to pay close attention to it. In fact, according to a recent report published on Business Day on May 4th, 2026, during the inauguration of the 2026 farming season in Niger State, mechanization support was distributed to farmers, where about 250 tractors was distributed, 25 local government areas were given 50 combined harvesters, 1,500 farming implements, which include planters and boom sprayers, 150,000 bags of fertilizers for the smallholder farmers. And honestly, this shows that agriculture can no longer depend solely on manual methods. We have to if we truly want to improve production, then we have to meet up the demands with the ever-growing population. But despite all this that we have seen, the benefits such as improved efficiency, also the precision in agriculture, automated irrigation systems and the likes, the farmers' reality is still different because the farmers find it hard to adapt to their local realities. Smallholder farmers dominate agriculture. So affordability and accessibility is very important. If the mechanization is available and the farmers cannot adopt it, then of what use is it? So clearly, mechanization is gradually shaping the future of agriculture in Nigeria and even across Africa. So while challenges such as costs, access, technical knowledge still exist, the opportunities are enormous, right? And we looked at it from improved production, better efficiency, and even job creation. In fact, the mental pressure of having to meet deadlines, having to find labor and the rest are eradicated due to the efficiency that comes with mechanization in agriculture. So one of the important things we need to do now as a matter of urgency is to ensure that the farmers are not left behind. As agriculture continues to evolve, we need to incorporate the farmers into this ever-evolving circle that agriculture provides. This has been it for today on Agriculture for Today and Tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. Remember that this is a media for agricultural development projects of the GSAI. Thank you for joining us. I remain your host, Esther Itifia. See you next time.
In the heart of our field lies the future of agriculture, sustainable, innovative, and powered by smart solutions from the rich soil of Africa to high-tech farms around the globe. Agriculture is evolving to meet the demands of tomorrow. At the intersection of tradition and technology, we discover smarter ways to grow more, waste less, and harvest greener. Together, we are cultivating a future where every harvest sustains the earth and its people. Join us 11:15 a.m. Mondays and Fridays on Global TV, Channel 365 DSTV, StarTime Channel 276, or YouTube Livestream GSA Initiative. Agriculture for today and tomorrow, as we share groundbreaking ideas, empowering farmers, and celebrate greenhouse solutions. Together, let's grow the future.
Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world. Voices that know, voices that live the African experience, voices that are shaping the next chapter of our story. Let your spirit rise. We don't just tell Africa's story, we own it. Join Joy Asonye on Razep Africa, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Global Television.
Welcome back from that. Now, that right there was Agriculture for Today and Tomorrow, keeping us abreast with everything you need to know about the agricultural landscape, how you too can contribute to food security, not just in Nigeria, but across the continent. But well, we are back discussing election concerns. And here we are going to talking about the latest development ahead of the 2027 general elections here in Nigeria. The ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, is facing growing resistance in several states over efforts to adopt consensus candidates for its primary elections, while party leaders argue that consensus arrangement and agreement promotes unity and reduces internal conflict. Some aspirants and stakeholders insist on open and transparent primaries, warning that imposed candidates could trigger division within these political parties. Meanwhile, former President Goodluck Jonathan is reportedly weighing a possible return to the presidential politics in 2027. This comes as the court is expected to hear a suit challenging his eligibility to contest the presidency again. The case is attracting nationwide attention and could shape the political landscape ahead of the 2027 general election cycle. In another development, businessman and presidential hopeful Hayatuddin has obtained the African Democratic Congress ADC presidential nomination form valued at 100 million naira. His move signaled increasing activity among opposition figures seeking to position themselves early for the 2027 elections. We have several other major political stories, but let us delve into these ones that I had read through. First of all, from the good luck, let's start from the good luck, Jonathan. I saw that some young people gathered themselves in his Abuja office to, encourage him to spur him to run for elections. Yeah. I've always found that super irritating. That's what we have to do, and it's rearing its ugly head again, where people tell you, Grass Cutters Association of Nigeria has bought the forms for me. I didn't want to run, but the people asked me to. Yeah. It is a very unfortunate trend in our political journey that is someone who knows his capacities is not showing the world how ready he is. He's telling you that every other person saw these potentials in me except me. In other climes, I will not vote for you for that main reason, that you don't even believe you can run. You don't even believe you have the capacities for it, until people who probably have ulterior motives are urging you to. Again, we saw that display of absolute shenanigans of people coming to the former president, urging him to run, and him being the politician that he is, did not outrightly say, no, I do not have intentions to run, because he had in many other ways talked about not having interest in Aso Villa any longer. His wife was very, very, very vocal. Mama Peace had been very vocal, talking about how they had no interest. It was a good run, and that's it. However, we heard him during that respond to the masses, or the select people who came for that, telling them that he would consult widely towards that goal.
I'm just very concerned about his return to the Aso Rock, because to be very sincere with you, I have two major concerns. First is what you had mentioned earlier, which has to do with people going to tell him to run. Recall that we had some people, or maybe others, go to him in 2023 to say, you can do this.
Yeah, it's almost expected every day.
Yeah, so every year when it is time for election, we keep seeing people go to this man to say, you can do it.
What do you think of it? What political party would he run?
At the moment, I don't think he has actually departed the PDP. So he's, of course, a stakeholder, an elder statesman in the PDP. So he has what it takes to, of course, go back to the polls. But my concern is, why should you sit down to wait for Nigerians, just like we saw people gathered in his office, over 10,000 or plus, you'd go to tell him that he can run again. And my other concern was him saying, thank you very much, you are leaders of tomorrow, and you have come to tell me to run. Just don't worry, I'll consult widely. Who asked you to consult widely? You should have.
It should be something that comes from within you.
Yeah, you should have a determination within you.
I still do not understand why Nigerian politicians think it's a bragging right to tell every other person wanted me to run. And it's only because they saw in me the leadership, that I'm running. It is absolutely to be scorned at. No, it shouldn't be a trajectory we follow. I remember criticizing that framework, or whatever I will call it, right there during the past elections. We had everyone buy you tickets except yourself.
Yes.
And I want to see you seek these positions.
As though you know what you're running for.
I'd like to think that you know what you're doing.
Yes, exactly. And then my second concern concerning this man, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, was in the early election, just when he lost to late Muhammadu Buhari, there were persons who did not want him to return. So why are you now in 2027 thinking that he can do better when you did not believe in him in 2015?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be different voices. That's the healthy democracy that we keep talking about. I do not expect all corners.
What has it done better? What has it done better between 2015 to 2026 that you think, okay, he's good and worthy to become.
Capacity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in time, Nigerians learn from experience.
Okay.
A lot of people would always say it is only now that we have experienced a Buhari that we can now say a Jonathan is better. It is only now that you are experiencing a Tinubu that you say, we were wrong to be so hard on Buhari. And I remember Nigerians made a joke. It was trending that may we never miss. May it never get to a point where we look back at it and be like, this was good.
Well,
we miss you.
The last part of my concern is on the person of Goodluck Jonathan. Over the years, I've actually seen him as a leader, and I believe that he is not a politician. And that is me trying to, not debunking what you said earlier, a politician that he is. He's actually a leader. So maybe I'm also seeing his response to the young persons who went to meet him as a means to calm them, not to make them to feel so bad that they actually came to meet him that, and maybe not to cause a rancor.
That's what a leader would do. A leader would call them and say, I appreciate what you're saying, but in fact, when I saw the news report, what I wanted him to say was, but then again, he probably is actually planning to run. But if he is the plan is, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your interest in me.
Exactly.
I appreciate your coming. However, this is yet again another opportunity to vote into power those who are more people-centric, people who know what visionary leadership that Nigeria needs, and then maybe tell them to be more intentional. Shun violence during it was important time to say, go get your PVCs, shun violence during elections, shun election inducement.
And then maybe promise them that you will tell them who you are throwing your own weight on when it is time.
No, I don't necessarily expect that per se.
No, I would expect that as a leader because, of course, he is a Nigerian, Joy. So he also has a one vote.
Right. Now,
so because he has a one vote.
Right now, if you just said he's PDP. PDP is masked in so much
Joy, we have seen politicians. I understand where you're coming from, Joy.
If he has to pick a candidate right now, which I think would have been absolutely wrong, would be.
No, I'm not saying now. I said he would tell them to wait. Yeah, exactly. He would tell them to look onto who.
A politician would do that, but a leader would not, because a leader wants to give an opportunity to everyone who comes to him. He's not going to come here and announce that everybody vote for Joy Asoyin for presidency when he's supposed to give counsel to Unyime, even though if I go into a context with you, you won't win. I'm just saying, but you will.
Okay, that was actually off camera because we never can tell.
He'll be there to give counsel to everyone who is coming to him as a leader. A politician, however, will probably be jumping from one campaign booth to the other, contesting for someone. But we're running out of time. Let's move away from Goodluck Jonathan's story and move right now to the consensus story. This word is heard during the 2023 general elections or preceding the 2023 general elections in 2022. And I said it over and over that there were a lot of people who were disenfranchised because of this same issue. These are individuals who have been party members, who have opportunities to serve, who have the abilities to serve, who believe they had the blueprints to change their communities. And however, we saw what we saw in consensus. Just a certain number of people just sit there and say, you know what, this person should go, this person should support him, we will look for something and give you. That arrangement should work. We saw the trending story of the gentleman who was crying because
he bought his form already.
And he was told to even though I know that in cases of consensus, nomination monies are paid back.
Are they paid back?
Yes.
Are they refunded?
Very often, it's part of the consensus that the political parties have. I don't know if it's across board.
Because I know
if it's across board, but I also know that certain political parties during a consensus will say, so that it doesn't hurt you so bad.
I've also heard, Joy, that the monies paid for some forms are not refundable.
Yes.
And
I mean the arrangement. There's no such thing as not refundable. Did it enter space? It entered a bank account. I'm not saying there's certain arrangements where these contenders do not have too much bad or ill feelings towards it. Arrangement where this is Nigeria. You sit down and say you were running for House of Representatives. Instead of running for House of Representatives, listen, I would you would become a legislative aide to the House of Representatives you were trying to run for. I know someone who contested and now a legislative aide in the House of Rep for the person he was supposed to be a contender against. I'm like, how do you fall from grace to grass? Pride will not let the likes of me, accept to be legislative aid to you. But then again, if you on the flip side of this story is someone who says this is a step in still serving as a legislative aid. Now I know better. Should I contest again? But tell me if you can be my legislative aid and then you go to the polls against me in the next round of elections. So I think it's stifling, but that's the pride in me talking. However, the consensus component to our elections that we introduced is utterly sad. We should subject everyone to elections, even though political parties will say it is a cheaper way.
Yeah.
It is utterly sad. I feel like it stifles it does not give an opportunity for the electorate to have an input into who really serves them. So I don't like it. I wish it will end. It does not promulgate healthy democracy that should start from the grassroots, which is coming from popularity. Don't do a consensus. Let's put everyone to test, a popularity test right there. But this is what we've come to see. I was hoping that with the reviewed Electoral Act, we would no longer have this. But
well, unfortunately, Joy, I think in some sense of it, I'm somewhat enjoying what we are actually calling today the consensus, because of course, yes, a lot of monies would have actually gone down. People would have actually sat down to eat and feed from others, while some others will remain poor. And so it's a call for concern for me, because yes, the consensus has come. However, maybe it's in one word or other trying to teach us how democracy should be, how elections should be followed, not at every point in time. Because like I said, I think yesterday we had our guest here, Boshinade, and one of the questions we threw on him was when it has to do with having to, subtle pay delegates to, get some votes, and then at the end of the day become the candidate of the party. And I think to some end, this will actually stop when it has to do with the consensus. But maybe it is in a way teaching us how to get ready for, without a consensus, how we can still go around elections without having to use money to get it. So subtle, I love it. But in another way, I think we have to maybe return to the real democracy. And I don't know how it's going to be, because it looks as though in Nigeria, everything to buy from the western part of the world is not well used here in Nigeria. We are actually failing. And somehow, I tend to always say that we have never gotten it right. And I hope that someday we'll get it right.
I don't think never is the word. There has been such a time when our democracy had, and in spite of the problems that our democracy faces, you must admit that Nigeria must be doing something right, because we have
so maybe we want to mention what we have actually gotten right.
Yes, we've had an uninterrupted democracy since it was adopted in 1999. So we must be doing something.
Is that
right.
The only thing we've gotten right?
I'm not going to sit here and say it's all bleak and uhuru at the moment, but it's something to also appreciate that somehow we just figure our way out. Again, you mentioned something about adopting the kind of democracy, adopting several ways of the West that we do not adopt to book. I am not one who sits here and say even adopt anything from the West. I would say let us figure out an indigenous pattern that works for
get things right.
The African people, the Nigerian people. Democracy is good. It's an inclusive type of government. But does democracy work for Nigeria? Does it work for the African continent? Is that why we are seeing people say, you know what, give me 7 terms in office? 7 term in office, and it's still, if you ask me, they are kind of democracy. So we need something that works for us, something that ensures more accountability and transparency in governance. If democracy doesn't work, we do away with it.
Yeah.
But because we are so subservient to what the West says, imagine for a moment that Nigeria comes up to say we do not want democracy. That's when you will remember how Washington cares for our democratic journey or our political journey. That's when you will hear when UN will come and say democracy is the best that works. However, we've also seen democracy fail us. Instances where
and we've been waiting for them to actually come up to say something.
Where dividends of democracy, it does not necessarily trickle and is not impactful, and yet we are happy as long as we have adopted this alien thing called democracy for us. If you sit me down here and ask me what I would rather have for us, I can't tell you. I'm just saying, but does it work for us? Should we tweak it and not call it democracy and tweak it to something that works?
Maybe we should do head count. Maybe we'll do head count.
Yeah, let's tweak it to something that's more practical for us. Because what happens if you want to follow the money in Nigeria? Somebody said that we sweep things under the carpet. That if Nigeria no longer has a carpet, what Nigeria has, you can't even walk by the carpet because of all the things we have swept under this proverbial carpet. The carpet is now overall because you can't even topple over that carpet. That's what happens here. Let's talk about a local government chairman, for instance, in this democratic setting, who is sent allocation. The local government chairman understands the things he has to do: primary health care, the primary schools and secondary schools, gutters. There are certain things that are roles of the local government administration. Nothing is done. What are the mechanisms to ensure that it is done? There's stifling that happens for citizens who even try to speak up on it. The other institutions like the police is not going to protect you. If you do not get help from the police or institutions that will help you, you want to go to court, you don't seem to have that confidence that you would get any sort of headway in the court, and so it leaves citizens who should naturally be excited about their leaders, excited about development and inclusive development. It leaves them thinking, let them do what they can, not understanding that it is all of us that are government.
Actually. So, Joy, to be very sincere, I probably do not want to go deeper on this consensus issue anymore. Somehow, not wanting to look like I'm heartless, but for those, I want to say, for those who probably one or the other have fallen into the trap of not being able to stand for their primaries in the parties. Unfortunate for them, but maybe, again, subtle, I'm happy.
Okay. So quickly, we'll just go to political parties, including the PDP, ADC, and APC, coming under criticism over the high cost of nomination and expression of interest forms, some pegged at 100 million naira. Critics have said that the fees may discourage young and less financially privileged Nigerians from participating in democratic process, while party officials defend the cost as necessary for administrative and organizational purposes. This is what we are left with right here, the high cost of forms. I was having a conversation with someone who had just paid about, I think, 50 million naira for gubernatorial. No, 25 million naira for a nomination form.
Should I say that's cheap?
Yes,
25 million?
And that is in a very small political party.
That's
again, I don't want.
I think all of us should go there.
Yeah. So it was slashed for this individual, and that's how it got to 25 million naira. But that's what we are now faced with in the country. Now tell me, for someone who truly wants to serve, how do you marry this? If I have to take out 25 million naira Is this some sort of investment? Am I going to recoup these monies? And if I am not going to recoup these monies, what would I tell my wife and children that I took out 50 million, 100 million from our coffers to serve Nigeria? So this is where corruption begins. Everyone who has to pay that kind of amount of money would absolutely recoup from it. And that is why you see the rice farmers have to buy these forms as justification. You hear them say, oh, I had to buy these forms. I didn't buy it because I don't have the money. That's what they want us to believe constantly.
Yeah. Joy, my concern is, I think, three of them. First, let me begin with the one that has to do with the whoopee amount of money. I think it now takes us back to where we started, where we discussed people saying, I didn't want to buy. So since I didn't want to buy, because of course it's 100 million, people had to, come up to buy for me. Recall that I think in the 2023 elections, people had to do the how do they call it? GoFund something to fund people crowdfunding to get money to be able to purchase forms and then go for consultations. And at the end of the day, when these people get into office, again, it starts with trying to see how to pay back or maybe refund from where they took from. And it is actually a cause for the downturn.
There was a time banks used to really give out loans. I think they still do. So for politically exposed people.
And you know what that means, because at the end of the day, when they return as victors, they will try to see how to refund to the banks, and then they will become stakeholders in their bank. And that is mostly where money will be going to. The second concern is, why should parties now wake up to say that they want to take over? I'm talking about the opposition parties now in Nigeria. Let me be very specific. The People's Democratic Party has benched her own at 100 million. The ADC 100 million. And for presidency. And then I'm yet to see that of the NDC. These are persons who say they want to take over power from the ruling All Progressives Congress, and they're paying nomination form for 100 million.
A lot of them will say it's a filtering process. They don't want to just.
Cannot know who exactly will.
Exactly.
So when you at the end of the day,
filters of the rich from the poor.
Exactly.
So Joy Asoye cannot go buy 100 million.
Yeah, you cannot.
Who said I cannot? Allow me tease myself. You cannot say. You cannot say that I cannot. I can actually go. However, does it make sense to me?
Joy will not.
We will not. I think that's the case. But
and then the last concern is the concern of the. I think last election they said there was such a thing as not too young to run, and then I think gradually we are.
Of course, there are ways to stifle
exactly.
you.
So
after telling you can run, and then they say
exactly. And then when I was a child growing up, we were told that we are leaders of tomorrow. I don't know where leaders of tomorrow will be able to get 100 million naira.
I'm not sure why the leader of tomorrow right now cannot afford the 100 million naira. We see younger children, younger than you, purchase really expensive vehicles and really expensive.
Those are not young people.
Those are young people. But this is where we end today's edition of Razep Africa. I hope you have been better or better informed after our show today. Rest assured, we'll be back again with so much more. But until we leave you, I am Joy Asoye.
And of course, I am Uime. And to do well to have a wonderful weekend. Good morning.